In 2020, I decided to actually go out on my own and set up my own branding. And the reason I did that was because I was really present to it wasn't working for me at home with my little one. I really got passionate about how can I make a difference to women transitioning through divorce and separation. It's a space where I feel that there's a lot of uncertainty for women going through the next steps of working with the financial planner and their lawyer and everyone sort of coming together. It's important that they have their hand held and have that really good support around them as well. I have some clients that will come to me and probably not until the second or third conversation, they actually then start disclosing all of their debts. Like they're very embarrassed to go through exactly what they're going through and what they've actually got. That's a big thing, getting them comfortable with whatever they've got's okay. I've got one client that she thinks that she's never going to have enough and she's got so much assets and cash, but because she's been living in a relationship where there's been such a world of lack, she's so fearful that she's not going to have enough money. My mum and dad separated when I was quite young, and my mum was a single mum, and she was fortunate enough to get some inheritance from my grandparents, and she had some savings, and she bought a house. I always have that in the back of my mind. When mum and I first left the family home, we were renting, we had nothing. The Salvation Army came in and dropped off things to us. So it was really hard. But no matter where you're at, it always will work out. And that's what I always say to my clients.
What does it take to be a financially empowered woman? And what can financially empowered women do together to change the world? A shocking statistic is that around 400,000 women in Australia are at risk of homelessness. And the cause of this is the lack of education about how to build a financial foundation, starting even before we first enter the workforce and well into our retirement years. My name's Dion Payne, and I'm the founder of the Financially Empowered Women podcast. I'm passionate about ending homelessness, and as part of that passion, I chose to look at the systemic barriers that are causing homelessness for women in the first place. The Financially Empowered Women podcast is designed to bring you the best experts from around the world to increase your financial know-how and give you practical and women-specific tips to overcome the challenges you might be facing, such as how to negotiate a better salary, demystifying super, or how to navigate a separation and ensure the assets are distributed fairly. My role is to provide you with the best information out there to change your trajectory and become a financially empowered woman, because you deserve it, and the world needs you more than ever to own your worth and help others to do the same. Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest instalment of the Financially Empowered Women podcast. My name's Dion Payne, I'm your host today, and I'm delighted to be joined by Louise Syphers. Let me tell you a little bit about Louise. Louise is a mortgage advisor and director of Abundance and Beyond, and has been proudly supporting women on their property journeys since 2001. With more than 20 years' experience, Louise's approach is personal, thoughtful, and grounded in genuine care. Welcome, Louise.
Thank you for having me. Lovely to be on here, Dion.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's lovely to have you. Now, Louise, you mentioned that you've been in business since 2001. That is a really long time. But what got you to start that business in the first place?
So when I first started in the industry back in 2001, I was actually working for somebody. So I actually was with them for nearly 17 years as their head broker in a financial planning space. And then in 2020, I decided to actually go out on my own and set up my own branding. And the reason I did that was because I was really present to it wasn't working for me at home with my little one. So I had a then back 6-year-old and I was just living the corporate space and it was just too busy. And then I really got passionate about how could I make a difference if I was going to set up my own business. And I didn't know that to start off with. That took me a little while to really get present to the difference that I wanted to make with women transitioning through divorce and separation. And that's when I started in about 2021, 22, I really got my passion of, I've always dealt with women, a lot of women going through these transition stages of their lives. And then I started really branding myself to make a difference to women in this space. So that's where I got to and why I've really grown in that space. It's a space where I feel that there's a lot of uncertainty for women going through the next steps of working with the financial planner and their lawyer and everyone sort of coming together. It's important that they have their hand held and have that really good support around them as well.
Yeah, beautiful. And look, what you said made me think of a conversation that I had quite recently with a girlfriend who is on the brink of separating from her partner. And thankfully she's not just up and left, she's actually thinking, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to take care of myself? How am I going to make sure that the kids are okay? So this whole area around divorce and separation is something that does bring up a lot of angst, because there's the practical aspect of it, but there's also the emotional side of it as well. In some cases, it may be a partner that somebody's been with for a long time. It's really beautiful that you're there to help guide women through that process. How do you do that exactly?
Yeah, so initially we just have a call and just, work out where they're at. And often on that first call, a lot of women either think they've got more money or think they've got the house or think they don't have as much as what they thought they would. So it's a real great discovery call and a safe space for them to share what they want to share and not what they want to share. So we always ask our clients, first of all, are you safe? Because often, we have women coming to us very raw at the start, and we want to make sure that they're in a safe space. And then we really work through, sometimes it takes a few calls to work out where they're at with knowing what they've got and where they want to get to, whether they want to keep the family home or if they can keep the family home, or they'd like to sell up and then get an investment property in their own name or within self-managed super funds. This is a big space that we really work with our clients. That our passion is that they have some sort of mortar and bricks after they go through the separation. And often they're not aware of how that could be possible. And within the super space, we have a lot of women in their 40s or 50s coming to us with maybe 250, 300, 400,000 in super. And if it's done correctly and advised by the financial planner or accountant, there you can buy property within super as well. You can't live in it, but at least it's some sort of investment. So we really, angle it and work out what works for them. Often, as you probably realize, it's a long process. So we have women coming to us very raw. They're just, going through everything now. They need to go back and do some negotiation and, going to court or whatever, the process is. So sometimes they don't come back to us for 12 months, 18 months, and then we work on getting them to the finish line of, getting the lending that they want. So it can be quite a long process.
Yeah, for sure. And what are some of the challenges that women face as they're going through that process? What are some of the things that you're seeing there?
A lot of noise from their ex-partner. So I find that where a lot of women get stuck is if they're having communication with their ex-partner on the side and he's becoming difficult. That can be quite overwhelming for the clients, for my female clients. And often they realise they've got to go through everything through the lawyers because it's just too much of an interruption and too much noise around. So that's a big one. The other one is really self-doubt. Like it's a lot to do with, especially with women who have got little ones, how are they going to do everything on their own? They've had a family household budget where they've had two incomes. Now they're going to go out on their own. And they are really stuck and wondering how they're going to be able to survive with the amount of income, especially if they're only working part-time, etc., how they're going to survive and, have a similar lifestyle to what they've had. So that's the two main areas that I find that women get really stuck. And that's a work in progress. So we will work through our clients, working out, roughly what their expenses could be, being, a single mum with two children. And some women have got, they're like, Lou, I've got no idea even where to start with that. So we'll just work on a general sort of ledger of what, a household income would be and, work on their household expenses in line with that income. And it's just a real estimate, but that is one of the biggest fears why a lot of women will not leave a relationship because they think they've got no idea or they can't survive on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, money is one of those things that feels scary at the best of times, or people feel confused about it, they don't understand it. Sometimes they just block it off and go la 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 la, and sort of
Yes,
leave it in
yeah,
the back burner.
absolutely, absolutely.
And all of that gets amplified during these major life transitions as well. But one of the things that you and I have spoken about is that money doesn't have to be scary. So tell us a little bit about some of the options that are available for women in these big transition periods.
Yeah, so I love what you're saying about money doesn't have to be scary, because we all have a story about money, don't we? Whether it's an inherited conversation or, just something that we have around money. So one of the areas that we start working on is really getting them present to the what so, because what we find with a lot of our clients is that, and not just women going through transition, other clients that we have is really getting present to what actually money you're coming in and going out of the household. So getting back to that budget sort of thing. And really getting them present to what's possible, because they really can't see, what's potentially possible, and then working through them to have them get some, I think the biggest thing is clarity around money. So, like I have some clients that will come to me, and probably not until the second or third conversation, they actually then start disclosing all of their debts. Like they're very embarrassed to go through exactly, what they're going through and what they've actually got. So that's a big thing, getting them comfortable with whatever they've got's okay. We work with whatever it is, And the other thing that I find is like, I've got one client that she thinks that she's never going to have enough, and she's got so much assets and cash, but because she's been living in a relationship where there's been such a world of lack, she's so fearful that she's not going to have enough money. And I'm like, you have got more than enough. So it's really interesting how, because she's been in that lack mindset all her life, her ex-partner, everything's like, they've got to do a big spreadsheet to buy things. They've got to get 6 comparisons. So she's so fearful, So you're really giving them that confidence that there is options, and getting them working out and understanding what it's going to be like. And I think the biggest thing that I find too is really for these clients to be starting to have the conversation makes the difference, So,
yeah.
Because when it's all in your head, you tend to go a bit stir crazy. So just having that confidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and look, you talk a lot about confidence and but also embarrassment. And there's a lot of shame that goes around with money as well. How do you help people, or what are some strategies for people to just go, this is where it's at, and not have that shame?
I think it's really just in the whole conversation piece, getting them comfortable with having the conversation. And like I said, sometimes that does take a little bit of time. We also work with a money coach, because sometimes there's some blocks there that they need to work out as well around that. And it's just really getting back to their confidence as well. Once they start seeing what's possible on their own, so we just guide them through, okay, this is what you'd like to get to. This is what your income is. They may be also getting some new government incentives, because obviously, when they're in their single parenting scenario, there's single parenting pensions and family tax benefits. So there's different things that they may not have also been aware of at the start as well. There's also one of my clients who has a significant amount of money in a term deposit. And I said, what's the interest that you're getting on that a year? And she goes, oh, no, he's never ever told me that. So we went back and had a look at it. So her interest per annum on that term deposit is $36,000. So I said, there you go. That can be, part of your expenses. So just getting them understanding what they've actually got is just a massive thing, And if we can't get them to where they want to get to, okay, what's the plan to get them to where they want to get to as well? They know that they're only going to get so much coming out of the settlement. It's less than what they thought. So let's working out a strategy of, are you needing to go back to full-time work? Is family available around to give you a gift? A lot of my clients are like, I'm never going to ask family. I said, please ask them, because, when you're in this situation, a lot of people would love to help, but they won't do the request to help sometimes because they think, they want to be asked first. And so many times I've had clients come back to me and go, oh my goodness, Lou, I'm so glad you said that, because I would never have asked my mum for money before, And as a mum, if my child come and ask me for money, I would love to support them, So that's a big thing as well.
And particularly, I mean, of course, as a mum, you want to support your children. I'd want to support my children as well. but knowing that there's grandchildren involved as well in some cases, of
Yes,
course you'd want to take care of the family unit.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just, that's just what we want to be able to do. So, yeah, so I love it. I love this whole discovery and working out the what's so and where they can get to, whether it's, like I said, now or it's, maybe 1, 2, 3 years off, whatever it is, and get them to where they want to get to.
So you're not just a mortgage broker. And I say that, sort of a bit tongue in cheek, like you're what you're providing with the strategy and the hand holding is more, because a mortgage broker is quite transactional. It's like, I'm going to get you a loan to purchase this property, off you go. But you're more than that.
I like to call myself a strategist as well, because I do like a lot of strategy work, So yes, no, thank you for that acknowledgement, because yes, absolutely. I think because I've been doing it a long time, and I used to work in, a big financial planning company, and I know a lot of sort of different ideas and thoughts. Now, obviously I can't give financial planning advice because I don't have a ticket on myself with that, but there's a lot of stuff that I can talk about, for the clients to go and speak to their accountant or financial planner about, which is really important for them to get that advice. And that's a missing out there, I find, with, a lot of women clients. They're just not sure where to go to next.
Yeah, 100%. So, one of the things about me is that I've got a property development background. I've done property developments in the past. I'm sort of moving more towards that direction again, even though I swore I never would. But what I love about property is the creative strategies that you can use. I love it. I love, because at the end of the day, it's all about how can I help that person to win and me to win, and how can I pull all of this together? And I wonder if that's in terms of the creative strategies, that's what you're talking about because of your background of being involved in the financial planning area. And if so, what's a really cool strategy that not many people know about that you could talk about, and then they'd have to go and talk to their accountants about it?
So there's one scenario which I would love to share, because this is not really about getting other advice, but just they came to me. A lady came to me who had about 150 grand in her account. She's had it there for about 20 years. And she said, I really don't think I can buy a property, so I'm just going to spend it. I said, well, let's just work through the options. So we had a little look at, and on her own, she couldn't buy a property. However, she said, I've got a daughter who's 25 now, who's starting to work and got some savings. I said, well, let's combine your income and buy a property together. So her daughter's, a bit of a loner, wants to stay with mum. And so they've been able to buy their own little apartment together. And the mother never thought that was possible. And just for her to have that sense of security, she's in her 50s, have something, a little haven for them both to be, together, was truly magical. And she wrote me this, just such an amazing testimonial to say thank you, because, she was about to spend her money on not much, really. So once again, it's just having that, I love being that educational piece and having our clients be aware of the what's so. And the biggest space that I do a lot in, because I've done it myself twice, is self-managed super fund lending. Now, if it's done right, it's great. But where it goes wrong is when clients try and do it themselves and don't get the advice by their accountant or financial planner. It's vital you get that support. How much should be using of your super? What's your age of retirement? So there's a few things that you need to look at. But if it's done correctly, and there's some amazing tax benefits with it as well, it can be a really good vehicle. And, it's another way to grow your asset rather than just having the money sitting in a super fund. By borrowing, you gain a bigger asset and then you have a bigger return at the end. So there's a lot of noise out there about super. It's expensive to set up. It doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. The main reason it doesn't work is when clients come to me and say, I'm going to buy an apartment in the city, one of 500 in my super. And I'm like a no pass. I'm not a property expert, but you want to buy something with land and get good capital growth. So it's a sort of set and forget when buying in super. So there's a lot of strategy around that. I absolutely love that, because it's a space that is a great vehicle if it's done correctly. That's probably the biggest strategy area that I work on, is the super fund area.
If you've been watching the news lately, it's easy to feel a sense of despair between power-hungry global leaders and absolute chaos and division, it can feel like things are spiraling out of control. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and just to have a sense of powerlessness. But there is a way to push back. We can stop looking at what they are doing and start looking at what we can do. At Women for Homes, we firmly believe that where we put our money is making a choice for the kind of world that we want to live in. Our mission is powerful: to mobilise 1 million women to invest $5,000 to end homelessness by 2030, whilst being financially empowered along the way. It's practical, it's tangible, it's something that we can do now, and it's something that we can do to take our power back. Join us at www.womenforhomes.com. That's women4homes.com. Oh, that's really exciting. And really, not a lot of people know a lot about superannuation. I mean, for the majority of the population, it's just, okay, I've got a super fund that my employer set up for me. They're putting money away, and that's great. But then there's not much else that they think about with that. And actually, I was talking to somebody and she said, oh, yeah, I've been paying into my super and I've been paying in for about 20 years, but I don't know how much I've got.
Yeah, I know. It's actually really good. A lot of people say, "Oh, just get the statement and file it away." Like they don't even, especially when you're younger. I remember doing that too. But when you get, like 40 plus is a good opportunity. If you've been working for a very long time, you'll have a good amount of super where you can certainly do something. So yeah, it's a great conversation, and it's just a great conversation to have with some of these women who have got no assets from the separation, but they've certainly got some money in super to be able to do something, down the track if they want to.
Yeah, so it's actually, what I love about what you're sharing is that somebody comes in and they don't think that they can do something, but after a conversation where you've shown them what the possibilities actually are, then they're like, okay, I can actually rebuild from that. And so what I thought was a hopeless situation is actually something that I can feel really empowered by. And that's really awesome.
It is. It is. And, I love just to be able to have these uplifting conversations with women because they've come from such a, all coming from such a bad space that they're just so blocked with what's possible. And then we can start, working out where they can get to is, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And I think, I do a lot of personal development work, and I recognize that when we're going through something and we can't see the forest for the trees, and everything just seems really bleak, but then when you can actually, I'll speak for myself, when I can actually calm down, just sort of have some quiet time, just go, okay, what's really happening? What are the options? Then options just pop in, and so having somebody like you that can be there to help guide people through that transition, which is a very emotional time, even I'm sure in the most amicable relationship endings, it's very, you're grieving for what has been, and there's uncertainty about what's coming next. So having somebody like you that can walk hand in hand with somebody as they're going through that journey and present options and show, no, it's not all game over. It's actually really beautiful.
And I'm really present to why I'm so passionate. And I don't always share this, but my mum and dad separated when I was quite young, and my mum was a single mum, and she was fortunate enough to get some inheritance from my grandparents, and she had some savings, and she bought a house. Like, she was only working part-time. And, I just remember her being so proud of herself, and I don't know actually how she did it. Like, she must have just got help from family back then. This is like 30 years ago. But I always have that in the back of my mind. My mum was only working part-time. Yes, she did get a bit of help from family, but that's one of the main reasons that I'm passionate, because, when Mum and I first left the family home, we were renting. We had nothing. The Salvation Army came in and, dropped off things to us. So it was really hard. But, no matter where you're at, it always will work out. And that's what I always say to my clients. I have, like what you're sharing about your friend, how she's planning on maybe, doing the, moving on and doing her own thing. I have many clients come to me with exactly the same thing. Lou, can you just give me an idea of what I can afford on my own? What are we sort of expenses we're looking at? How does my income stack up? So I have a lot of women coming to me planning before they've actually even, got to that down that track. And that's a little bit easier for them because then they've got an idea of what they can do, and gives them a little bit more confidence of, I've got one client 12 months on, she's still not quite ready. She's like, Lou, I'm nearly there. I'm like, you take your time, whatever you need. We're here to support you. So, yeah, we have a lot of emotions coming through our office.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the property side and the more technical aspects of purchasing a property. So when somebody says, okay, Louise, I'm ready to go, how do you guide them through that process?
So, yeah, we really look at there's the two main things that the bank will look at is your income to service the debt. So they'll come to me and say, we've got such and such savings. And then from there, we'll then look at your purchase price and then the income to stack up for that lending. If they're a first home buyer, there's some really good grants out there at the moment. We go through the first homeowner grants with them to see if they're eligible for that as well. Some of them are, saving on stamp duty. Some of them are saving on mortgage insurance. Now there's a 2% help scheme that's just come in as well. So we have a look at what they're entitled to. And once again, in that space, a lot of our first homeowners aren't really sure what they're entitled to. So we, go through that with them. And there's some significant savings to be had. And then when we work out, there's two things that I look at when I have a client coming, particularly for the first time, is, they might have some good income and I can say you can borrow whatever the amount is. Then I also want to look at, is that going to be the repayments are doable for them? So often a lot of my clients will say, I've been renting for many years and I'm paying $4,000 a month rent. I don't want my repayments to go over that amount. So even though the bank might say they can borrow, borrow and pay a loan repayment of $5,000 a month, they're like, no, Lou, my buffer is $4,000. So we're very particular about looking at not just what the bank says, but also what the customer needs, because there's no point them, having this astronomical loan if they've got this lifestyle where they only want to spend so much per month. So we really look into the details of what's doable for them. And then work out, what money they need to get to the finish line, what money they need to have left over out of their savings because they want to have a little bit of a buffer. So, some clients are like, we need to have this much in our accounts. We only want to use this much of our savings. If they're a little bit short, we have the conversation about, is there any family wanting to gift you? And just exploring what else is available to get them to where they need to get to. So these sorts of clients come to me very early on as well, which I love. So they might say, Lou, we've got $50,000 of savings. We want to buy it a, $800,000. Okay, so we need to get a bit more savings. So then we work through that as well. So, and then we talk about whether they want to pay mortgage insurance or not. If they're not entitled to the grants, that's an extra cost. So they're aware of that. Everyone has a different opinion about paying mortgage insurance or not. Some clients are like, I do not want to pay the bank any extra, so no. Other clients are like, I just want to get into the market, so I'm happy to pay the mortgage insurance. Yeah. So there's still there's more strategy with that as well. And I think the most important thing, it's just every client has a different scenario. Every client has a different story about themselves and what's happening in their, family. And we just look to tailor it to suit them.
And often there's a bit of confusion around approvals and whether it's a conditional approval or pre-approval or unconditional approval. I bring this up because I know of people that have gone out and gone, oh, I can buy this, and they've got a pre-approval, but then actually when it comes down to the cold hard numbers, they can't get the property that they want to. What are you seeing around that?
It's a very good question. So in terms of when I have a client that wants to go to the market and start putting their hand up for an auction, we get a pre-approval in place, which basically means the bank, there's two pre-approvals. There's the computer-generated pre-approval, which we don't generally do because it's just numbers going into a system and then it's not looked up, it's not picked up by a human. So we rather do the human pre-approval where a human's touched the file, checked it, done as many checks and balances as they can, So pre-approval, conditional approval is really the same thing because it's subject to valuation and final sign-off by credit. So if the customer's going to an auction, they can only get a conditional approval because there's no signed contract to come back to do the valuation. So that's the most you can do with an auction, or an unconditional offer if there's an unconditional offer on the table. Or ideally, in the ideal world, which doesn't happen a lot in, suburbia and, popular areas, is having subject to finance for 14 days. So it's conditional, sign a contract, goes into the bank, then the valuation gets signed off, and then it goes unconditional, which means there's nothing else outstanding. So it is a really good point what you're saying, Dion, because sometimes what happens when clients are getting these computer-generated conditional approval letters, they're not checking like your Equifax file, and they're not checking other things that they should be checking with the customer, like they're not looking at pay slips. So if the broker's entered something in wrong, there's not that double eye over the file. And I have had clients come to me where they've particularly gone over the counter in the branch, where the branch do these all the time, these computer generated conditional approvals, and they've got caught out. So listeners, if you're buying, please make sure you get the right pre-approval conditional approval to ensure that you can do as much as you can to have all the boxes ticked off, because it's very important.
Yeah, good call. And then there's a belief that you need to have multiple properties to build wealth, but your belief is that you need one really well-positioned property. Talk to us about that.
So it obviously depends on the client. So some clients, they're never going to be able to buy any more than one property. So I always say, talk to a buyer's agent and make sure you get the right stock that's going to have good capital growth, because that's the most important thing is good capital growth, long term. Whereas I do have other clients that really want to build up their portfolio, and they might buy investment properties. They might buy some in their own name and some in super. I've also got clients where I do quite a bit of commercial as well. So they might want to buy their own, factory or office, and then they can also create wealth by that. I think it's different strokes for everyone. We have some clients that are so set on just keeping buying properties because that's what they want to do. Whereas other clients, you normally find that most, in the general sort of world, that most clients will have probably maximum of 3 investment properties. That's what it sort of works out to be, 2 to 3 3 properties all up. So, and then sometimes what we find with some of our clients is they've sort of hit a tipping point of doing it on their own, and then they think they'll buy a property with their child or sibling or something, so then they can still keep accumulating without, more assets when there's more cash injection coming in from another family member as well, which is possible as well. So, there's lots of different options.
Beautiful. And look, as you were talking, I thought of, I just wanted to share that the kind of work that we're doing at Women for Homes is all around creating more affordable homes and ending homelessness. That's our big goal. And our very first project is working on co-living homes for older women. So providing homes that are beautiful, affordable, dignified, that offer a mixture of communal space and community space with also private space. So, sort of bedroom, ensuite, kitchenette, that kind of thing. The co-living model I absolutely love. Like for us at Women for Homes, this is just where we start because it's relatively low-hanging fruit. It's not where we end because we need a diverse range of homes across the board. But one of the things that I realize is that co-living homes they have the potential to be positive cash flow generating. So when people talk about accumulating multiple properties, I just want to seed this in there. If they're buying co-living homes so that the tenants can pay an affordable rent and they've got something that is affordable and dignified and, can long-term leases, that's a really beautiful space to be. And it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the investor. It's a win for the tenants. It's a win for society at large, I believe. So I just wanted to share that with you
It's actually a really good question because that's becoming quite a popular space now, the co-living. And I was actually speaking to a property person yesterday who's now creating these properties. And it's just such a beautiful way to be able to have a space, a beautiful space for these women, as you said, to come into and have a safe space and have them, have their own space as well. So this space is really taking off, and I've only just sort of started working in this space with lenders, and it's amazing what's available. So it's a really great space for investors as well to look at as well.
Yeah, cool. Well, I look forward to talking about that with you in more detail later on. But I guess we're pretty much at the end of our conversation together. And so I know that there's a lot of women out there that would be feeling really encouraged and inspired to be listening to you, and in terms of the work that you do with supporting women through a separation journey into purchasing their own properties. How can women get hold of you?
So they can look me up on Instagram. I'm very present on Instagram. So Louise_Syphers is my Insta page. And I've also got a website, abundancebeyond.com.au, and you can book a call via the website and have a discovery call with me, and we can, start the conversation. It's all about starting the conversation.
Yeah, beautiful. And Abundance and Beyond, that's a beautiful name for a website.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that name?
I always had the name Abundance. For many years, I thought if I was going to set up my own business, it was going to be Abundance. And then the 1st of July came 2020 to set up the business, and I was like, I don't know. And my girlfriend said, you need A and B, so you're at the top of the charts of Google. And so then I just decided to call it Abundance and Beyond. So, which is all about what I love, that space of, talking about abundance. And that's another thing that I love talking about, which is for another conversation. But yes, Abundance and Beyond is the company name. So thank you.
Beautiful. Well, thanks again, Louise. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for sharing your time. And this has been a great interview.
Thank you for having me.